Guys, Kyrie Matt for the mid-season premiere of Arrow, Season 4, Episode 10, Blood Depths, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode after that really surprising cliffhanger, of course, in the mid-season finale with Felicity injured. I mean, we didn't know if she was going to make it, if she was possibly the one dead. I mean, there were a lot of possibilities as to what could happen, and I have to say that this was kind of a weak follow-up, and don't get me wrong, there were some things I definitely really loved about this episode, but overall, for a mid-season premiere, I really did not think this episode was all that strong. I thought this was actually kind of a weak premiere, I have to say. Um, Definitely thought there was way too much going on. Let me just say that right off the bat. There was way too much going on in this episode. And at times it was hard to keep up with everything that was going on. But let's just get into it. I have a lot of things to say about this episode, and let's just talk about it. So we start off 4 months from now. We see Oliver. He's standing at Felicity's. It looks, well, we think it's Felicity's grave at this point. We don't know whose grave it is, but Barry joins him, and basically Oliver says that it's his responsibility to end it by killing Darhk, and we know that he's going to do that, obviously, because we saw that in the first episode. I don't know why we saw this scene again, but we did, and right away we see the EMTs take Felicity into the operating room, and Green Arrow fights a ghost, demanding to know where he can find Darhk. And let me just say, one of my biggest complaints with this episode is that Darhk is barely in this episode. And the whole thing is supposed to revolve around, Oliver confronting Darhk. And I get that we're trying to, stretch out the season and we want to keep Darhk around, but just not having Darhk in an episode, it felt weird to not have him here when the episode should be focused on, Oliver going after Darhk. So the ghost throws himself off the rooftop and into a transform below, killing himself. Green Arrow then returns to the bunker and tells Diggle that none of the ghosts are giving up Darhk, and he wants to talk to Andy, but Diggle warns that his brother isn't interested in talking, and Laurel arrives and says that Felicity is going in for another surgery, but Oliver insists that he has to find Darhk before he disappears entirely. Now let's talk about Andy. The Andy plot in this episode I thought was the best stuff that was handled. I thought everything handled between Diggle and Andy I definitely really enjoyed, and I thought they handled all that very, very well. I'm not even going to talk about the flashbacks at this point. It's kind of tedious to talk about it. I don't really want to, but I don't really have too much to say about it. Conklin takes Oliver and Tiana back into the mercenary camp, figuring that now he has what he needs to show his boss that Oliver is a traitor. And when the wounded Oliver collapses, Tiana convinces Conklin to give her a few minutes to tend to Oliver's injuries. Oliver tells her to make a run for it, but she refused to abandon him, and Conklin gets them moving again. Again, I don't have really much to say about this, so I'm really not going to talk about the flashbacks all that much. And the next day, Diggle and Laurel arrive at Felicity's room where Donna and Thea are with their friend, and Donna points out that Oliver is there, and Felicity assures her mother that Oliver is busy with something important, and a nurse comes in to prep Felicity for surgery, and Felicity assures the others that she'll be fine. And seeing Felicity already, completely conscious, not up and well, but talking, I thought was very I definitely did not, I thought was kind of anticlimactic, honestly. I mean, the way they left off, we didn't know if Felicity was going to wake up, and I think they should have kept that anticipation going in this episode. I just felt it was very rushed what was going on with Felicity here. So, at the bunker, Diggle goes to Andy's cell, slams his younger brother into the cell. Andy wonders what has changed, and Diggle says that the person that changed is Felicity, and he punches the prisoner, and in the main room, Oliver watches on the monitor. It's clear that nothing is getting better between Diggle and Andy, but I really think they showed, Andy's point here of why Andy is with the ghost. They definitely made that apparent in this episode, and that's something I definitely really enjoyed. So at the station, we see Lance is on the phone when Oliver comes in. He explains that he's looking for Darhk and wants to know where Lance was meeting with Darhk, and Oliver offers Lance space at the bunker because he won't be able to go home, and assures Lance that Laurel can take care of herself. And Lance gives Oliver the address, and Oliver says he's going to kill one more person, and the way that they're setting this up, I'm very sure that the person in that grave is going to end up being Lance. I mean, just the way they're setting things up, knowing that Lance is a close ally of Darhk, but he's not actually working with Darhk, and he wants him to think that Darhk is going to find out at some point. I mean, Darhk's not stupid, and I definitely think that Darhk is going to when he finds out Lance, if he finds out that Lance is not actually with him and that he's actually working with Oliver, I'm pretty sure that Dark's the one to kill Lance. I'm going to say that right now. So Lance right now is my number one option. I know a lot of people are thinking Diggle. I could not see them killing off Diggle. I could not see them doing it. As great as a twist that'd be, I can't see this show without Diggle. I mean, David Ramsey's one of the best actors on the show. I couldn't see them, I couldn't see him leaving the show, and I just could not see them killing him off. I could not see them doing that. So, as much as, it'd be interesting if Diggle was killed, I think Lance is going to be the one to be killed, but we'll have to see. So Green Arrow goes to the office building and finds Ghost corpse on the floor. Continuing on, the Archer then finds an elevator with Anarchy symbol painted in blood on the walls, and we basically focus on Anarchy this entire episode, which I was a bit surprised about and definitely took me off guard. First of all, we haven't seen Anarchy since the second episode of this season, and I really didn't think he was that important of a character. Yes, I know he turned against Darhk, and when you turn against Darhk, bad things happen to you, but I don't really understand why we need to see him in this episode. I really don't understand that. I mean, what was keeping us from seeing Darhk? I didn't really, it just seemed like they didn't want Darhk in this episode to stretch out the season, so they put in Anarchy, and it just didn't really work for me, I have to say. So Oliver tells the others that Anarchy is involved, and they figure that Anarchy wants revenge on Darhk for what happened before, and he's one step ahead of the team. And Diggle goes back to question Andy again, and Oliver lies and claims that he learned Dark's location from a ghost, and we then see back in the flashbacks, Conklin takes Oliver and Tiana to Raider, and when Conklin says that Oliver has been hiding Tiana away, Raider assumes that Oliver has been keeping her for his personal needs, and Conklin then shows Raider the map and explains that Oliver and Tiana came up with from the freighter, and Oliver says that he got the mask for Raider, and Raider tells Conklin to kill Oliver, and Conklin takes Oliver outside, whips him as Raider and his men look on. Honestly, kind of a hard scene to watch, I have to say. I mean, again, I don't usually care as much about the flashbacks, but that scene was honestly quite hard to watch, I'm not gonna lie. So Diggle returns home, tells Lila that Felicity's still in surgery, and one of the best scenes of the episode, in my opinion. I really love this scene between Diggle and Lila. I always love scenes between these two. He kisses his wife and admits that he's been beating Andy for information on Darhk, and Lila figures that Diggle feels betrayed by what Andy did in Afghanistan, and she suggests that Diggle approach Andy as a brother and not a ghost. And I agree with what Lila's been saying, that ever since Diggle found out that Andy was alive, and not just that he's alive, but he was working with the ghosts, he hasn't really seen him as a brother. He's been seeing him as this traitor, and Diggle insists that he can't, but Lila assures him that his love is iron and he go to the ends of earth for the people he loves, and that Andy is just as important, and Andy still loves him, and Diggle should too. I mean, Andy has betrayed him, obviously, but Diggle needs to get over it. He needs to not hold this grudge against his brother. He needs to move on. As hard as that is for him to do, he needs to do that, and definitely, I think that was very good advice that Lila gave. So Laurel and Thea go to the hospital, and Thea worries that Anarchy will come after her because she set him on fire, and she explains about how Darhk used his powers on her and her bloodlust was better, and now she blames herself for Anarchy's bloodlust, and she goes into Felicity's room. Lance is there with Donna kissing, and Donna quickly hugs Laurel. Again, you can definitely tell that Lance and Donna are starting something. He has Thea take Donna to the cafeteria, and then tells Laurel that he didn't have time to tell her, and she says it's fine and figures that Lance gave Oliver the information on Darhk's location, and he's more concerned about her. The crime lab then texts to report that they got 2 DNA matches from the blood at the crime scene, and at the bunker, Laurel tells the others that the blood came from Michael and Crystal Olglin, who are Anarchy's foster parents, and he abducted them 3 days ago, and they figure that he's settling old scores. Thea then hacks into the security system at Lenny's home, and they spot him on the monitors. The team suits up and goes there and discovers that, basically Anarchy has torn the place up. He's cut his face out of all the photos, and they find him sitting in front of the TV, a mask on his face. He says that he was expecting the ghosts, but is happy to see them. let me just say that he was way too over the top in this episode. I mean, I understand that Arrow's trying to be very comic booky this year, and they're done a very good job with that in terms of like Dark and things like that, but something about Anarchy in this episode I just thought was way too cartoony. I was not a fan of Anarchy in this episode. I thought he was way too over the top, and that was my thing. I thought he was just way too over the top to the point where honestly it was kind of hard to take him seriously. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So when Thea goes for her bow, the doors open in the TV cabinet and automatic guns open fire. The team takes cover and Anarchy slips out the side. And of course, the last time Thea saw him, she did try to kill him, so obviously she's kind of worried that he's gonna go after her. Thea goes after the killer in the kitchen and a bomb goes off, and Green Arrow then takes out the guns, motion sensors, they go after Thea. Meanwhile, Anarchy removes his mask, reveals his burns, and says that Speedy is the one who saved him from himself, and she draws an arrow, tells her to hit her with her best shot. Black Canary runs in, unleashes her canary cry, and Anarchy attacks her. Diggle arrives, knocks Anarchy out, and Green Arrow says they're now going to find out what he knows. And the team then takes him to a warehouse, and Green Arrow insists that he needs to know how Anarchy found Darhk, and he refuses to discuss it with Speedy and Black Canary and wakes up Anarchy. Anarchy says that Darhk went home, and Green Arrow beats him. The villain asks what the hero can do to him, and Speedy steps forward, tells her brother that Donna just texted that Felicity's out of surgery, and that it isn't good. So, again, they're definitely trying to take their time with this Felicity reveal, and I think they did a good job with this, definitely. The way that they took their time with it, I was definitely a fan of, but here's where it started to get a bit too much. Definitely was that text that Donna gave out. Diggle then returns to Andy's cell and says that he's ashamed of what he did. Andy's very unimpressed, and he reminds him that the last time that Diggle beat him 10 years ago when Diggle found out that he was dealing and convinced him to enlist. And he says that it wasn't who he was, and Diggle insists that he loves Andy then and now, and Andy says that Darhk believes that the world needs a reset, and he kind of believes that too, and honestly, I understand Andy's motive here, that he sees Darhk as the person that can reset things, and Darhk isn't happy with the way the world is going. I've talked about this before, that I think they're definitely trying to write Darhk as less of a villain and more of a person, and when you do that, that just gets us more invested. I mean, that's one of the reasons that Wilson Fisk in Daredevil was such a great villain, because we understood his motive and we didn't really see him as a villain. That was a show that got you to see him as a character, and I feel like Damien Darhk, they're definitely trying to do the same thing, and that definitely is going to work out for them in their favor, because that just makes your villains less like villains and more like characters, and that's definitely something I think they are doing very well with Damien Darhk. So Diggle says that he can understand it. However, Darhk hurt a woman better than the two of them and crossed a line. He begs Andy, brother to brother, where he can find Darhk, and after a moment, Andy says that Darhk has talked about Stone Heaven. Diggle thanks him, but Andy says that now they're only, and Anarchy is then taunting Speed, figuring that she can't look at what she did to him. He tells her to stop holding back, insisting that she can't control herself, and Speedy puts an arrow to his throat. Police cars pull up, Speedy leaves just in time, and Oliver arrives at the hospital, finds Donna outside Felicity's room, and we get this really sad scene with Donna. She explains that they can't fix Felicity's spinal cord, and she'll never walk again. And as they talk, Oliver sees a newscast about the SCPD capturing Anarchy, and as sad as this was with Felicity, I don't know, I didn't feel it. I felt like they were revealing a bit too much here. I mean, just knowing the Felicity's spinal cord is damaged, I don't know, it just didn't really work for me, and it seemed like they couldn't kill Felicity, so they at least, crippled her. I understand that she's very seriously hurt, but, I don't know, it's just something about it. It didn't really work, but I don't know. Oliver then sees a newscast about the SCPD capturing Anarchy, and we then go back to 5 years ago, and I actually really like this scene. The only reason I'm talking about this scene and the flashback to general is that I actually really did enjoy this scene, I have to say. Conklin continues whipping Oliver, and a symbol on Oliver's abdomen glows. Raider sees it and orders Conklin to stop, which are the symbols that Constantine noticed before. And he says that he has a need to Oliver, and Oliver grabs Conklin's gun. Raider tells the others to stay back. Conklin asks Oliver what he's going to do. Oliver puts the gun to his head and says that he's not running, and we then go back to the present. Green Arrow shoots out of the engine on the police van transporting Anarchy, takes out the guard. Once he frees Anarchy, Anarchy says he's not going to give up Darhk's location, and Green Arrow aims and shoots, shattering Anarchy's handcuffs. The hero tells him to make sure that Darhk is dead and leaves. And back at the bunker, Laurel confronts Oliver about what he did. He says that he did what he had to do because Laurel gave Anarchy up, and Oliver reminds her of how many people Darhk and Hive have killed over the last 6 months and says that he put a tracker on Anarchy. And Laurel points out that she put a murderous psychotic back on the streets. And Oliver reminds her that she did the same thing with Sarah. And yeah, that's true. I mean, she was the one that let Sarah back out there. But of course, Laurel didn't know how damaged Sarah really was at the time. So, in her defense, that's not really Laurel's fault. So, Diggle then comes in. Oliver tells him what he did and tells them to leave if they don't like it. And after asking Laurel to give them a moment alone, Diggle says that Andy gave him a lead, but it's a dead end. He says that he has Oliver's back, but says that he came so far from when they first met. And Diggle then tells his friend not to lose what made Felicity fall in love with him in the first place. And that's true. I mean, the thing that Felicity fell in love with was the camaraderie between all of them. And that's the one thing that they can't lose. And that's something that I definitely love that Oliver's trying to do. He's not trying to make this like last season where they all just split up and they couldn't trust Oliver anymore because they just didn't agree what he was doing. And it's clear that Oliver's worried that's going to happen again, but I like that Diggle's saying, we can't lose this and we have to do this differently this time. It just didn't, last time it just didn't work. So definitely I really like seeing that. At the campaign office, Alex is working when Thea comes in. I'm kind of over these two, I have to say. Alex and Thea, they're very wooden. I think the actor that's playing Alex isn't that great in any way. And she says that she can't be with him because of her anger management issues. Alex admits that he knows something is bothering her, and if he knows what it is, maybe he can help. Thea says that he can't, but he doesn't believe it and says that she is steel inside of her. She says that she's not ready, and Alex tells her that he'll be there when she is, and I don't know, just all of this with Thea I thought was completely unnecessary in this episode and really didn't go with this episode. I mean, I understand Anarchy's connected to Thea. Thea, obviously, there's a past between those two. There's a lot that's going on between them. I understand that, but we should be focusing on Oliver trying to get to Darhk, and we really didn't do that. I really feel that Anarchy got in the way of doing that in this episode. So, Diggle and Oliver then track Anarchy. The tracker goes dark, and Thea wonders what they do now. Oliver admits that he's out of ideas, and Diggle tells him to see Felicity because they need each other. Laurel promises that they will find Anarchy, and Thea assures her brother that Diggle and Laurel are right. And finally, Oliver goes to Felicity's room, apologizes for not coming sooner. She knows that he was looking for Darhk, and Oliver admits that he's gone off the rails. He wonders if Darhk is winning because he hasn't gone far enough. And Felicity is paralyzed because he didn't, and Felicity says that there's no point in being Green Arrow if he loses himself, and assures Oliver that his proposal doesn't count now that she's paralyzed, and she thinks that now that she's paralyzed that they shouldn't get married. And Oliver takes out the engagement ring, puts it on Felicity's finger, assures her that it's for better or worse, and he doesn't care what condition that she's in. I mean, clearly she's upset about it, but he just loves her so much that he doesn't care that she's paralyzed, and I definitely really like seeing that. I like seeing that he'll pretty much just go to the ends of the earth for her, and I definitely really like that. That's one of the reasons I love Oliver and Felicity. I know there are people that don't. I know most people don't really like Felicity, but I heard that the worst is coming for these two. I heard that they're eventually going to have that conversation about Oliver and, whatever her name was, his the mother of his son. They're gonna talk about that at some point. We'll have to see what happens there though. But I did hear that that conversation is coming. So enjoy these nice Oliver Felicity scenes while we have them. That's what I say. So back 5 years ago, Oliver tells Raider that he'll help him find out what he needs in return for Tyana's safety. Raider agrees and Oliver hands over the gun. Conklin objects and Raider warns him that he doesn't need Conklin arrive. And back in the present, Laurel comes to the hospital where Oliver's watching over a sleeping Felicity. She says that Diggle learned about Stonehaven for Andy, and they cross-referenced it with the tracker's location. They have a residential address, and Oliver figures that Anarchy's going after Darhk's family. Oliver thanks Laurel for inviting him along and leaves. And at Darhk's manor in Stonehaven, we see Anarchy tells a tied-up Darhk's wife, Ruve, and their daughter that Darhk is on his way. He gets out a flamethrower, says that Darhk is incidentally responsible for what happened to him. The team arrives outside after confirming the house is owned by a dummy corporation, and the anarchy symbol is painted on the driveway. They split up to move inside. Green Arrow and Speed get in first and take out the flamethrower. He attacks them while Diggle and Black Canary free the prisoners. Anarchy manages to get past his opponents and runs out. Green Arrow split up to go after him, and Darhk is waiting outside, and Green Arrow charges at him. Speedy pins Anarchy to a tree. She prepares to shoot him, and Anarchy says that he can see the piece of him inside of her, and Darhk telekinetically stabs Green Arrow with 2 of his own arrows, demands to know where his family is. He thinks that Oliver is responsible for this. The hero then pulls the arrows out, says that he saved them. Darhk gives him a few weeks to spend with his family before he kills him, and Anarchy is shocked that Thea missed him on purpose, and he cuts himself free and attacks her, knocking Speed to the ground. He stares at her for a moment and then runs off, and let me just say that that scene between Oliver and Darhk, I didn't like that scene because it shouldn't feel this way. It shouldn't feel like this is the beginning. It should feel like we're moving forward with this, and it still just feels like these two are having small interactions here and there, and I need more than that. I need more than just these small interactions between Oliver and Darhk. And I understand that Darhk thinks that Green Arrow went after his family, but Darhk just tried to kill Felicity, so definitely this should not just be, that's not how that scene should have gone. So later the team returns to the bunker where Lance is waiting. They confirm that Dark's family said that they're not his family and have fake IDs supporting their claim, and Oliver tells Thea that he's glad she's alright and goes to see Felicity. And 5 years ago, Conklin takes Oliver and Tiana to a prison cell, locks them in. He promises that once Raider's done with Oliver, they'll get back to their personal business, and Tiana tends to Oliver's wounds, thanks him for saving her life again, says that her brother would have liked him, and back in the present, Diggle goes back to Andy, starts dealing out cards just like they did as kids. Andy picks up his hand. I don't know why Diggle's leaving him in the prison like this. I don't know. I mean, Andy could be of service to him, honestly. I understand Andy's obviously not going to turn against Darhk, but he could help them in some way. I mean, just get him out of the prison. It's kind of annoying to see him just in this prison. But I do like that Diggle and Andy are trying to get back on good terms, and I definitely like seeing that. And like I said, I think it was the best thing handled in this episode, because everything else I didn't really think was handled all that great, I have to say. So Thea calls Alex over, offers him a drink, says that something happened earlier. She tells Alex that he was right and she's stronger than she thinks she is, and they kiss, whatever. I don't really care about these two, honestly. And it's not that it's bad, it's just, with everything going on, we don't need this romantic subplot. We already have Oliver and Felicity. We don't really need Thea and Alex. We can have these two together, but we don't really need this plot between them. I mean, I think this was kind of unnecessary, honestly. So when Felicity wakes up, Oliver apologizes again for not being there. He wants to take her to Bali, and Felicity says that she'd go anywhere with her. And however, she says that if Darhk is still in Star City, then they both have work to do. And obviously, she wants him to go after Darhk. And then we get this really big scene here with Darhk here. Darhk transports his family to the Fairmount Hotel, says that they'll be safe there until they find a new home. Rue points out that the Green Arrow saved them and tells him that he should have killed the hero that night. And Darhk says that it would be bad form, promises that she'll have a new beginning once they've brought the world to an end, and Ruve's crazy. I mean, Ruve is just as crazy as Darhk, and I'm definitely interested in seeing if this is going to go anywhere, because it's clear that Ruve wants Darhk to kill Oliver, and we'll have to see if he actually goes through with doing that. So 4 months from now, the very end of the episode, we see Oliver goes back to his car, gets in. It is confirmed that Felicity's not the one dead because she's now in the car with him. She's waiting. Oliver says that he isn't okay. She tells him that he knows what he has to do, and her words are specific. Kill that son of a bitch, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, guys, I didn't think this was a bad premiere per se, but for a mid-season premiere, quite weak, I have to say. I mean, I really didn't feel like anything changed after this episode, except now we know Felicity's in peril. We know that Felicity is crippled. Well, not in peril. We know that she's crippled, and obviously that's a problem. So that's really, I think, the only bit of substantial information we got here. I like that Diggle and Andy are trying to get back on good terms. I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's going to go. Is Andy going to possibly you know, get out of that prison? Is Diggle going to find a way to make Andy of service? Because, like I said, Andy is going to stay loyal to Darhk. I mean, the way he looks at Darhk, I think, is definitely very interesting. And I think they definitely showed why Andy's going to stay loyal to Darhk. I mean, to Andy, Darhk is the person to change things, definitely. He's the one that's going to change things for the better. And he wants that. He wants a change. And Darhk clearly wants to make that change. Speaking of Darhk, what is going to happen with Darhk? I mean, it seems like Ruve wants him to kill Green Arrow. We'll have to see what happens there. I mean, definitely things are going to get very intense, and I can't wait to see what happens with Darhk. Does Darhk kill Lance? I'm pretty certain that Lance is the one that's going to die. I mean, just the way that Lance is going, I definitely think that's the direction we're headed, but we'll have to see. I definitely think that's what could be happening, though. We'll have to see what happens there. Next week, it looks like Felicity is back on her feet. Not back on her feet, but she's going to be back. We don't know how she's hurt. I don't know if she's going to be in, like, a wheelchair or whatever, but we do know in the promo that she says that I can't be part of the team anymore, so we'll have to see what happens there. This whole thing with Anarchy, I just found to be very unnecessary. It wasn't bad. I just didn't think it needed to be in this episode. The actor that plays him, first of all, I'm not that big of a fan of. And also the fact that I just don't really think it was necessary in this episode. This episode should have simply been stuff with Felicity, focus on that, and focus on Oliver trying to find Darhk. That would have been perfectly fine. We didn't need all this anarchy bullshit. I thought it was honestly just stalling out things. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys saw of this episode. Like I said, it wasn't a bad episode just for a mid-season premiere. It was quite weak. I definitely was not as big as a fan of it, and I really wasn't as into it like I thought I would be. But I will see you guys in the next video, which will be for American Crime. Someone just asked me where my review is. That will be for my next review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.